reasons that utterly escape everyone involved, you're listening to a bipolar, a schizophrenic, and a podcast. Here are your hosts, Gabe Howard and Michelle Hammer.
Welcome to a bipolar, a schizophrenic, and a podcast. I'm Michelle. I have schizophrenia.
I'm Gabe. I have bipolar. And today we are going to talk about suicide. There's been a lot in the news in the last several weeks because of some high-profile suicides, and because that's how the news cycle works. People want to talk about it. And Michelle and I kind of waited a couple of weeks so that we could let that die down, so that we could offer our take on it.
A little bit of a pun there, Gabe. You let it die down?
I didn't mean to. And that would be a homicide joke. That would not be a suicide joke. Michelle and I have lots of thoughts on suicide. And I think that we both want to be clear that we are not fans of it.
No, it's not a fun time.
We've both been suicidal.
Yes, quite a few times. I've had many a suicide attempt. I'm obviously very bad at it. That's why I'm still here. So I guess it's a very good thing that I'm bad at it.
The first thing that we should say is that for every suicide that is successful, there are 20 attempts made. So when we talk about the problem of suicide in America, this is America, it's actually a lot bigger than people realize because we tend to only remember the successful suicides. But 20, listen, put this in your brain. For every one person who completes suicide, 19 other people will try and fail. Those are the Gabes and Michelles of the world. But make no doubt about it.
Failures. We're failures, Gabe.
We are failures, and that led to our success.
Yes.
But
that's the only time failing. Well, not really, but it's like failing was the most beneficial thing we could have done because it led us to success. Maybe that's not the only thing that we're failing did, but it's like one really good thing we failed at because then it led us to success. So I'm so glad I failed. I'm so glad I'm bad at trying to kill myself because here I am now.
Michelle,
I'm so glad I suck. I suck at suicide attempts. I am so bad at them. I'm the worst at it. And I'm just never going to try again because I know I'm so bad at it.
Yes, this is definitely something where we don't want practice to make perfect. But listen, another stat that should be alarming to people that are thinking about this is you're more likely to attempt again if you try once.
What? Yeah.
So again, we have people that try suicide, and for some reason we don't take them seriously after that. We have so many stupid tropes in our country. Like if somebody threatens suicide, it's best to ignore them because that will encourage them to do it. Don't talk about suicide because you might give them the idea.
I know. Yeah. And on the news, when they talk about suicides a lot, they don't like to say how they did it because they don't want to give people ideas on how to do it too.
And I think that that's probably not a bad idea. I don't know the stats on that, whether or not that actually, I believe, and I think you do too, Michelle, I believe that any conversation about mental illness, mental health, and suicide is a good conversation. Because
Yes.
I think the problem isn't that we're having the wrong conversation, like all the word police are like, you're talking about it wrong, you're talking about it wrong, you're not using the right words. I believe that the problem is that we don't talk about it at all, which means people are making up their own shit.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I mean, people are just not talking about anything, not talking about enough. And like celebrities have to die by suicide before anything happens. That's to be a big profile thing.
And then we talk about it for a couple of days. And then I would venture to guess that the people listening right now have already forgotten the names of the 2 high profile celebrity suicides that we've had in the last few weeks. But they do remember that they were out there. Because that's how quick our news cycle works.
No, they remember the names. They totally remember the names. Don't call our listeners a bunch of dummies. They're smart people. They remember the names.
I'm not calling them dummies. I'm calling them busy. People move on quickly.
I guess people move on quickly, I suppose. But I mean, a talk about suicide is really, really important. We definitely need to talk about it more. I remember being like 9 years old thinking, I think I want to kill myself. And I was like, I don't really even know what that is. What is killing yourself? What's in the next life? Maybe my next life will be better. I should kill myself in this life. Like, what was I thinking? I was a stupid 9-year-old, not even know what suicide was.
See, that's what's so fascinating. And I think it's one of the reasons that you and I are like kindred spirits, Michelle. I thought about suicide as far back as I can remember. I never remember a time where I didn't think about killing myself. It was just an innate personality trait. And people ask me, like, wait, every day you wanted to die? No, not every day did I want to die. On the good days, I thought, today I don't want to die. But I still thought about it.
I mean, back in my college days, even medicated, I would think about killing myself almost every single day. But in my head, I said, as long as I don't think it's a good idea, I'm good. So I had suicidal thoughts every day, but I was like, okay, as long as I don't agree it's a good idea, I'm good, which is still a horrible thing to think all the time. But because I wasn't really on the right medication, that's what happened to me. And I even like told other people, I'm like, no, it happens to me every day. I think about it every day. Like, you think about suicide every day? And I'm like, dude, no, it's fine. Because as long as I know that it's a bad idea. And they're just like looking at me like, that's like not a good way to live. But, okay, like that's how I lived my life. And I still graduated college. I made it through somehow because I had it in my head. As long as I think it's a bad idea, I'm okay.
It just felt so comfortable. Truthfully, when I got cured, and I know there's no cure, please don't write us a bunch of angry emails, but when I reached recovery with bipolar disorder, I suddenly became afraid to die. For the first time in my entire life, here I am like 27, 28 years old, and I'm positive that everything is going to kill me. I was never worried about anything killing me before because I was thinking about death so often that nothing scared me. Like, as far as I was afraid of getting hurt, but I wasn't afraid of dying because that just seemed, I don't know, it was a comforting thought. Like, isn't that messed up? But let's talk about your college days a little bit. And you know why I want to talk about your college days a little bit?
Because they were fun.
No, because 15 to 24 is a scary age when we talk about suicide. Guess what the number one cause of death for a 15 to 24-year-old is?
Suicide.
No, it's accidents. They get in a lot of accidents, mostly car accidents.
I knew the answer to that, but I thought you were driving me somewhere else.
I love that. That's a nice little pun. I was driving you someplace else. No, look, the number one cause of death is accidents, mostly car accidents. But, there's some fell off your skateboard and hit your heads in there. But
that's why I personally never skateboard.
Oh, yeah. Skateboards are scary. But the number two cause of death is...
cancer.
No, it's suicide, Michelle. Come on.
I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah,
heart disease.
Yeah, it's heart disease. For 15 to 24-year-olds have a lot of heart disease. I mean, it's rough. It's rough being 15 to 24. No, but it is suicide. It's absolutely suicide. Now think about this for a moment.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, 3 and 4 are homicide and drugs and alcohol. And the reason I bring that up is because if every parent listening to this show right now was honest with themselves and honest with us, they would say that they warn their children about drugs and alcohol, and they warn their children about getting murdered and being safe, but they probably haven't talked to their kids about suicide. So the two things that they're more worried about, homicide, drugs and alcohol, are killing their children less likely, and I know that's a weird way to say it, than suicide. We need to talk to children about all three.
That would be 100%. I was warned about drugs and alcohol. I was warned about, getting rapes and mugged and all that kind of stuff, but I was never warned about suicide ever.
Yeah, my family never sat down and discussed it with me. And this would have been a very powerful conversation for my family to have because I was suicidal so often. If they would have told me that suicide was not normal and I would have had so many questions. And maybe I would have gotten diagnosed younger. Maybe I would have gotten help. Maybe we never would have met.
That would never have worked for me because if anybody asked, I was always told to by a guidance counselor or a therapist, I'm not going to And I won't talk to your mother as long as you say that you're not going to hurt yourself or somebody else. So, of course, I would have never said that I was suicidal because I was so paranoid against my mother that I would never have said any of that. So that would have not helped me in any way.
And that's really sad, too, because it shows that even the people that are supposed to be discussing suicide and self-harm with us are doing it in a way that you didn't feel safe to share. And this isn't to put down our mothers and our fathers and society and the people that are helping us. It's just that
it was my paranoia against my mom. I didn't want her to know.
Right. So we got to get away from that. Now, Michelle, I want to give you a chance to redeem yourself. So the 5 and 6 causes of death for Americans ages 15 to 24 is say cancer and heart disease.
Cancer and heart disease.
Michelle, how did you know that it was cancer and heart disease?
I took a lot of health classes.
That's very exciting. Now, let's move away from 15 to 24-year-olds for a moment. So you are the youth movement on our show, and that makes me the old-ass motherfucker of the show.
I am not between 15 and 24. That's not my, I lived those years and was suicidal during those years, made many attempts during those years. But like I said, I suck at trying to kill myself. So I made it through, and I have not made any attempts after those years.
Well, that's really, really good. But again, you are closer to 15 to 24 than I am because you are closer to 24 in age and you already act 15. But let's talk about everybody. Let's talk about Americans in general. We have a top 10 list of the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States. And, it's not surprising. I know you were joking, of course, earlier, but heart disease is number 1. Cancer is number 2. That's not really a surprise to anybody. There's a bunch of stuff I've never heard of. You got to get down to number 4 to find accidents. People die of strokes, et cetera. But here's the thing that I think that people really need to understand. Suicide is 10th on the overall list. Of all the ways there are to die, suicide is still prominent enough in our society to make the top 10 list. Yeah. And that's scary. It's scary that so many people are successfully completing suicide, and yet Americans in general don't see it as a problem.
What can we do to lower the suicide rate in America? What are the best things that we can do? For myself, medication and therapy has helped me, but what can we do? What are the risk factors? How can we help a friend?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think let's establish the basic facts just to make sure that people, again, if they need to hear it this way, every 40 seconds, somebody dies by suicide. It's a 60% increase in worldwide suicide rates over the last 45 years. So despite mental health advocates like, us, it's not getting better. As we mentioned before, there's 20 failed suicide attempts for every successful one. And again, as we mentioned before, women are more likely to attempt suicide while men are more likely to succeed.
Do you know why that is, Gabe? I'm kind of curious.
Yes, because men are more likely to use a gun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, men are more likely to use a gun. Women are more likely to cut. Cutting has it's slower.
And don't forget about pills and other ingestibles, Gabe.
You are right. And it's sad that our gender stereotypes play out in everything. Women are less likely to use guns because men are more likely to own guns. Men are less likely to take pills to die because men are less likely to take pills in real life. It's just gender stereotypes seem to hold up wherever they are. But I know that's not the point of the show, so let's hop back on track.
Well, I've also heard that women like to be found like what they looked like.
So vanity, proving that gender stereotypes hold up no matter where you are.
PsychCentral.com is the internet's largest and oldest independent mental health online resource. Since 1995, our completely free, award-winning website has been run by mental health professionals offering reliable, trusted information, as well as over 250 support groups to people living with mental illness. From professional articles to personal stories, PsychCentral.com is worth your time checking out and is the generous sponsor of this podcast.
So you asked, how can suicide be prevented? The first thing, we want to be fair. Not all suicides can be prevented. As much as I would love to tell you that 100% of suicides can be wiped out, they can't be. And the reason that I say that is because no matter how hard you try for your loved one, you might not be able to make it. And that is very scary and very sad. But, we pride ourselves on being reasonable in this show. And as much as Michelle and I would love to say that the suicide rate can be 0, that's not very realistic.
But it can be significantly lower than it is now. Significantly.
Yes. Now, risk factors vary with age, gender, and ethnic group, but here are the important risk factors that apply to everybody. If you have a depression or other mental disorders, and listen, we could do a whole show on recognizing depression, but for a layman, extreme sadness.
Crying all the time.
Yeah. If you think that your loved one might be depressed, they might be. Take them to a doctor. There's, of course, substance abuse is another indicator. Prior suicide attempt.
A family history of suicide. Any violence in your family, like physical or sexual abuse. Having a gun in your house is a risk. Being incarcerated is a risk. I watch a lot of Lockup, and they tell a lot of stories after it airs, and they say like this person hung themselves in jail. That actually comes up a lot when you watch Lockup. And if you've been exposed to suicide by others, or have a family member who died by suicide or a peer who died by suicide, you're most likely to try to die by suicide yourself.
Mental health advocates, they love to say that talking to somebody about suicide won't give them the idea. That will prevent suicide rather than help. And somebody could read this, exposure to suicidal behavior of others, such as family member or peers. Well, isn't that giving them the idea? Isn't that them talking about it? It's the trauma of being involved with this that causes the risk.
Right.
It's like the appropriate discussion of it. So don't get those two things mixed up.
Right. Because if you see like your family member or your peer and they die by suicide, you think like, oh, they got rid of their pain by suicide. Maybe I should get rid of my pain by suicide too.
Right. And that is far from having a safe and appropriate discussion about your feelings. So again, people mishear that all the time, and they say, "Oh, that's why we can't discuss it." It'll give them the idea because they just no. Talking is always good. If you don't know what to say, get professional help, doctor, therapist, guidance counselor, just ministry, whatever it takes. Find somebody who can help you. It's ignoring these feelings that make the risk go up. It's not reacting to them.
I'm curious what you think about this, Gabe. Somebody said something the other day. I had said something. We kind of like talked back and forth, but I was like, do you think that suicide is kind of a selfish act? I'm curious about your opinion.
I don't. I think that it is how people die from serious and persistent mental illness and other mental issues. I think that my grandfather fought really, really hard when he had cancer. He did. He fought really, really hard, and he tried. He wanted to live so desperately. But eventually the cancer took him, and we mourned his death from cancer. Could you imagine if instead of mourning his death from cancer, we said that he committed cancercide, and that if he only would have fought harder and loved us more? It is unfortunate that it looks that way, but it's not. It's not that way. Your brain is messed up.
But doesn't it put more pain on the people around you? Like that it almost hurts everybody around you more than it hurts really. I mean, you're gone, but everybody around you is dealing with the pain.
They're dealing with the suddenness of it. First off, when somebody dies in an accident, it's a lot harder on people. Listen, if we're being real here, anybody who goes to the funeral of a 30-year-old is going to notice a much different experience than if you go to the funeral of a 90-year-old. We're prepared for older people to pass away. We're not prepared for younger people to pass away. We're also, as a society, not prepared for people to pass away suddenly. So when somebody dies by suicide, they've usually passed away suddenly because of our collective ignorance on suicidal behavior, thoughts, and prevention.
But the question always is at that time, like, why did they do this? Why did they think they had to do this? Why would they do that? Nobody understands really why they did this. And then you're all at the funeral going, this could have been prevented. This could have been prevented. And the conversation goes, why didn't we see this? And it's like, it's all too late.
Exactly.
You know?
So that's why we need to have these conversations today rather than tomorrow.
That's true. We do need to have these conversations today. They need to happen today, not tomorrow. They need to happen all the time. There are way too many suicidal people in this country, in the world, all over the place. And it's just ridiculous. And I once again, I am the happiest person that I am so bad at trying to die by suicide that I'm alive right now.
You say that a lot, Michelle.
I do. I'm usually very proud of the things that I'm good at, and I have a lot of pride in myself and the things that I do, but I've never been more proud to be bad at dying by suicide.
Good job. So here are some other signs that a friend or loved one might be considering suicide that are so obvious, you would think that people would understand them. But to show how little knowledge people have, this list is just, people don't know. And that's why Michelle is going to enlighten you.
Here's number 1. Talking about wanting to die or to kill yourself. Shocker. Next one. Looking for a way to kill yourself, such as searching online or buying a gun. That one I've done. Number 3. Talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live. Number 4. Talking about feeling trapped or in unbearable pain. Yeah. Talking about being a burden to others. Increase the use of alcohol or drugs. Acting anxious or agitated, behaving recklessly. Sleeping too little or too much. Withdrawing or feeling isolated. Showing rage or talking about seeking revenge. And then the last one, displaying extreme mood swings. I think I fit every single one of those categories at one point in my life.
I absolutely fit every single category at one point in my life. And I know my parents come off so bad in this, but they didn't recognize these as suicidal signs. They didn't pick up on them because they didn't have the understanding or the basic training.
The only one was that I do not do whatever I said was talking about wanting to die or to kill yourself. That's the only one I never did, because once you say it to somebody, who knows what's going to happen? You might find a cop and your athletic director outside your classroom, and then you run away, and then you end up in a cop car getting sent to the psych ward.
That sounds like a teaser for a future episode, Michelle.
Yep.
And listen, I do want to be fair. I never flat out told my parents that I wanted to die or wanted to kill myself, and I never bought a gun. I was younger, but yeah, the majority of them just yeah.
They're
and
so obvious.
My parents just thought that I was weird. I mean, I am weird, but you remember what my mom said a few episodes back. And if you don't, you should listen to that episode.
Everybody is weird. Nobody's normal. Find me a normal person. If you're normal, send me an email and tell me why you think you're normal. I'll write back.
What's your email, Michelle? Is it info@schizophrenic.nyc?
It is info@schizophrenic.nyc.
All right. Tell Michelle why you're normal and you could be featured on an upcoming episode. There is way, way more to learn about suicide than our dumbass show can provide in 25 minutes.
That's true.
Please educate yourself. The life you save could be your own.
Okay, guys. So if you are feeling suicidal, or if you know someone that's feeling suicidal, definitely try to reach out and call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number is 1-800-273-8255, or the crisis text line. You could text 741-741 from anywhere in the USA to text with a trained crisis counselor. Reach out. Don't be sad. If you need help, have no shame.
That's very good. You can also go to your general practitioner. You can go to an emergency room. The bottom line is find somebody and talk, because Michelle and I believe that, well, talking will cure people, which is why we have a podcast. Hey, everybody, if you like our podcast, don't forget to share it everywhere you can. It helps us grow. Remember, you can find us at psychcentral.com/BSP. We will see you next time, and don't forget to review us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts.
Heart disease!
You've been listening to a bipolar, a schizophrenic, and a podcast. If you love this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Head over to iTunes or your preferred podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. To work with Gabe, go to gabehoward.com. To work with Michelle, go to schizophrenic.nyc. For free mental health resources and online support groups, head over to psychcentral.com. The show's official website is psychcentral.com/BSP. You can email us at show@psychcentral.com. Thank you for listening, and share widely.